Let's now have a look at the work date. And also here, when you work with NAV on a daily basis, it might be necessary from time to change the work date. And I will start with explaining the concept of the work date. And because the first thing that we need to know is what is the work date. And let me explain you by going to the application. So here in the application, you can see the work date in the status bar. So in this case, you can see that the work date of Kronos International is January 28, 2016. Now in a real life situation, your work date is by default always today's date. And the fact that this is a very different date is of course because we are working in a demo company. But again, in real life, it's always today's date. Now, what is the work date used for? Well, the system will use the work date to suggest in documents and journals. So for example, let me create a new sales order. So if I go to sales orders, and if I click on new, I can simply assign a number. And by assigning a number, you will see that the system will automatically assign a posting date, an order date, and a document date. And that these dates are based on the work date. You see, so that's what the system uses the work date for. So let me go back by clicking on escape, and again you can see my work date that the system just used in my new sales order. Now, in some cases it might be interesting to change the work date, and I will come back to this a little bit later, but let's first of all have a look at how we can change the work date. And there are two different ways that we can do this. The first way is by going to the application menu, then by using the set work date function, and then by selecting the work date that we want to work in. And so for example, suppose I would like to revert my work date to December 31st, 2015. I can simply click and select the work date. And now you'll see that the work date has changed to December 31st, 2015. And now if I click or create a new order, you will see now that the system will use this date. You see, so that's basically, again, an example of how the system uses the work date. So changing the work date can be done by going to the application menu, but you can also simply click on the work date in the status bar. So if I do this, if I click here, you will see that I will get the same date picker, and I can switch back, for example, to a work date of January 28, 2016. And there we go. And so now I have again my demonstration work date that we started from. So these are the two different ways that we can change the work date. So we just saw in the application that we can find the work date in the status bar, and that the system will use it to define document dates, posting dates in documents and journals, and that the standard work date normally is today's date. I've also showed you that there are two different ways to change the work date. The first one by going to the application menu and use the set work date function, and the second one by clicking on the work date in the status bar. Now the last thing on the work date is when should I change the work date? Now in most of the cases you will not have to change the work date, you will just use today's date. But it could be useful when posting in previous periods. So for example, a bookkeeper who still needs to enter some invoices from December, so last month, December last year, can change the work date so that the system automatically assigns the correct posting date. And it will really be necessary when in a new fiscal year you still want to post in the previous fiscal year. So for example, suppose that you're in January 2015, but you still have to enter some invoices of December 2014, then you will have to change the work dates in order to have the system assign the correct date, but also the correct number series.